Hello, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Glasses, and this is Films with Glasses.
This is ground control to Major Tom. You've really
You can find that somewhere in the world on the interwebs. But
won't it be where this one is?
I guess so.
It'll be on the same website that this one is on.
I'm talking about 500 years in the future.
Oh,
Malachi.
well, yeah, that's true.
Let me introduce you to Malachi. He just
Hey,
talked.
guys.
He
I
talked
sure
too much.
did. That
And-
sure happened.
I talk too little.
And that is Jared. And basically, we're going to talk about the main plot in 2001: A Space Odyssey, where it kind of picks up in the Saturn, Jupiter mission. These guys, it was about a week ago that they first watched 2001: A Space Odyssey. Let's just talk about when it really picks up. So basically, this is the main plot. When people talk about 2001: A Space Odyssey, chances are they're referencing from this point onward. Chances are they're not talking about
Whatever happened before.
they're not talking about those conversations on the telephone with Stanley Kubrick's daughter. So what do you want for Christmas, daughter? Oh, I want a telephone. Well, we already have telephones. You're talking on a telephone, daughter. Okay. But basically, so we cut to a spaceship, and basically how this is set up, it's revealed through exposition, creatively through like a BBC interview. Like the crew, they're watching like a BBC interview where they recorded it on the ship, and they're basically talking about how the mission is set up. So they have two doctors, Dr. Frank Poole and Dr. David Bowman.
I think you mean David Bowie.
Ground control to made. No. All right. But no. But then you have HAL 9000, which he's an artificial intelligence. This was 1968,
crazy.
by the way, so it's a bit weird to like have such an intricate character be a robot in 1968.
Yeah.
And then you have the rest of the crew who are in suspended animation, like kind of like cryotubes. And this is basically they're basically like, okay, whenever we get to Jupiter, we'll wake them up.
Yeah,
And
they're
they'll do
hibernating.
they'll do their part of the job later on in the mission. But for now, they're just napping. But basically, what happens is, so they have some interesting conversations with how Frank and David.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
so let me just say this: HAL 9000, or as they refer to him in the ship, HAL is the most interesting character in the entire.
I think he's the only character in the entire movie.
Everybody else is just.
Everyone else is a prop.
They're just.
He's the
sports
only
announcers.
character.
David's pretty interesting.
All right,
Just
David's all right. He's
Stanley
so-so.
Kubrick tried to like phone in some character development for Frank.
Yeah.
When his parents call him.
Yeah, his
call him like
parents call,
in the
and then-
ship. They send him like a message. It's like.
Yeah.
You know how like the Happy Birthday song is copyrighted? The Happy Birthday song is in this film. Was the copyright after 1968 or before? Because if
I don't
so, then
think
every
it really matters, my dude.
but that means that every time someone buys this movie, a little bit of movie goes over, a little bit of money goes over to the company that owns Happy Birthday, because they do that weird thing when they're singing to Frank, and he's kind of like half paying attention.
Look, I'll just sum it up right now. Happy Birthday was copyrighted in 1935, and it was switched over to Warner Chappell Music in 1988.
Okay,
that's
now
all
we
we
got
need to
that
know about
settled.
it. So just move on.
But Jared is dying.
This was like 5 seconds of the film, and we've already wasted like a minute and a half on it. Move on.
Okay, but basically what happens is there's some concerns from David and Frank over whether Hal should be trusted as a crew member. Basically, Hal states multiple times that all the systems in the 9000 series have never made a mistake ever.
Yeah.
Like none whatsoever. And they're like, even like a small little mistake, and he's like, none. And Hal. So basically what happens is right after they have this sort of discussion, like, we're just concerned, Hal, that you'll make a mistake. And he's like, the reason that and Hal is basically like, the reason that these missions go wrong is because of human error and nothing but human error. And they're like, oh, well, that's weird that you would say that.
That's a little creepy.
And then that's when Hal decides to bring up that, oh, there's an antenna, like, control device outside the ship that's failing.
Why don't you guys go check it
should
out?
Go check that out. And so they check it out, and basically what happens is they can't figure out what's wrong with it. And Hal suggests he checks back with Earth, and he's like, okay, so what I've come to the conclusion that we should just let the device fail. We should put it back in operation and let it fail. That way we can find out what's wrong with it. And then they're just like, oh yeah, okay, that sounds good.
Oh, sounds like a good idea. Let's go out into space and go work on it.
And then David goes to Frank. He's like, hey, come here for a second.
Come here.
And then they go into
and they go and they sit in the pod.
They sit in like a little pod, and they close the doors, and they make sure that Hal can't hear them.
Yeah.
And basically, what they do, they have a conversation about, we should shut down Hal for now, just in case. But Hal.
But little did they know that Hal can read lips.
Yeah, Hal was looking through the window and he's reading lips. And then this is when I was really confused because then the intermission screen.
Yeah. Then there was intermission, and I was like, oh.
That's when the intermission in the film is.
Yeah.
And then I'm just like, oh, I guess I should go to the bathroom now. I guess
No, I got up and I shouted, "Woohoo! We're done!" And then I realized it was intermission and not the end of the film.
Yeah.
And I was like, no.
Why would you want it to end there? I would be so dissatisfied.
I wouldn't even care because at that
ended-
point I was not emotionally involved.
I mean, I don't know. I saw the intermission come up and I was just like, whatever, this movie's.
I guess I'm obligated to go to the urination station now.
No, I didn't.
That's what I call the lavatory. But then what happens is it cuts back after the intermission to to Frank going out and about to shut down the antenna or turn it back on. Yeah, he was about to turn it back on because it was at that time shut down. And basically what happens is we get this extremely slow scene where Hal decides that he's just gonna poke Frank, and then he's just gonna go spiraling off into space.
Yeah,
This is one of the most terrifying film scenes you will ever see in a G-rated film ever.
Yeah,
where it's just Frank floating off into space, frantically waving his arms.
Yeah.
You never see like how hit David, not David. You never see him hit Frank off into space.
Yeah.
And just him. You just see it just cuts to him flailing off into space.
Yeah.
And then it cuts to David's face, and he's just looking out the window like, what is going on out there?
Yeah.
Where are you going? Come back.
And so
Hey,
he's
man, we're
just
friends.
briskly going out to the pod. He's like, yo, Hal, I'm gonna go check that out. I'm gonna go get him.
Yeah, I'm
And
gonna go
Hal's
get
just
my
like,
friend.
yo. And then Hal's just like, I have no idea what happened.
Whatever could have happened
Which is
to
strange
him.
for him to lie. And then you think, at this point, it's like, well, we know that he did that.
Oh,
so why would
obviously.
he lie about that? And
Because he's an evil computer genius.
we haven't got to that. Why
We just got to that. He just did that.
No, but then there's this cool kind of reveal. What happens is Dave goes after Frank, who's flailing off into space. It's a very weird practical effect though when you look back at it. It's really good for its time, but you didn't really have CGI. But it's like there's an incredible scene actually where reduced gravity is presented in a film in 1968, which is like basically what they did with that scene is they used a bungee cord. But I'll talk more about that later. But what happens is David goes off with Frank. And he tries to, rescue him. But while he's gone, the only people who are in the, the only person supervising the ship is Hal at this point. And it's when Hal decides to kill everyone in suspended animation. He just turns off their life support systems, and I'm like, whoa, this is a G-rated film, and he just killed
You can't kill someone in a G-rated
he
film.
killed several people just calmly.
Yeah.
And it's really it's terrifying.
Well, I mean, that shows just
kill
the
you
point
and you.
of humanness Hal has, because he has the ability to lie and kind of talk to them, but when it comes to actual emotion, he's lacking.
Yeah,
that because
they
he's a
presented
computer.
that in the film earlier in the BBC interview, like, hey, do you guys think that Hal has genuine emotions? And then they're like, well, I mean, he definitely
He's got
shows that kind of
something.
thing. Whether he imitates emotions or whether whether he's a parrot or whether he actually feels these things, that's up for debate. But he gets along with everybody in the crew, and so that's all that really matters. But then he does this stuff where he lies and he kills for what he thinks is the greater good, and that is what is presumably the malfunction with Hal. And so So David, he rescues Frank. I think Frank died.
Yeah, he did.
Yeah, he died.
He died.
But
But he rescued his body. He got his
I mean,
body
we don't
back.
see him alive. Yeah, he retrieved his corpse.
Yeah.
But what happened is Dave comes back, and this is one of the most iconic scenes in the film. It's the open the pod bay doors, Hal.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, Dave, but I can't let you do that. You know, we've all seen that scene parodied
Yeah.
at one point or another.
Yeah.
But it's a really strange scene because it's Dave just desperately losing hope. Like, oh man, what happened? You know, it's him uncovering that Hal has truly, like, went insane.
Yeah.
And so what happens is, you know, Hal won't let him in, no matter, you know, how much Dave begs him.
Yeah.
And Hal's like, I don't feel like this conversation has anywhere to go. I always imagine that it's just like a girlfriend boyfriend relationship.
It's over, Hal.
No,
I can't love you anymore.
Dave's just like, hey, can I come in? And it's
Can
like,
I come in and at least get my stuff, man? No,
like-
I don't love you. I'll
like-
throw it
It's
outside.
like, I don't feel like there's anywhere that this can go, Dave. I'm sorry, but this is the end of this conversation. And so basically what happens is Dave figures out how to get in through an airlock. And this is when the reduced gravity, or as it's, you know, more popularly referred to as zero gravity, you know, but there's no such thing as zero gravity because science. But no, basically what happens is he's dropped from a bungee cord into like this big cylinder. In, you know, that was the practical effect.
Yeah.
And that's how they were able to present that in the film. So basically what happens is he does make it back into the ship. And what he does is there's this cool scene where it shows like that he's heavily breathing and whatnot, and he walks in, and then it's just Hal, like the tides have turned, and Hal's basically saying like, hey, I feel a lot better now. I promise that I won't malfunction again. I was just feeling very strange. He didn't ever say malfunction though. He said, I'm feeling very strange. I'm better now. And that's when it gets like, that's when Dave's like, I'm determined.
That's when the film got interesting.
Dave is just determined, like, I need to shut him off. So he goes into the control panels.
Oh, this was
and
my
there's
favorite part of the film.
He
my favorite
switches
part.
levers very slowly.
Yeah.
These small little switch. I just spit on the table, and Jared is wiping it up now.
Thanks for that, glasses.
But,
Nice job, Jared.
Oh man, I just overwhelmed the mic with my sigh. but he's switching off the switches, and Hal's voice gets more monotone as time goes on. And I know you've been begging to talk about this.
I have.
In Hal's death scene.
Oh, this is my favorite
basically what
song.
happens is Hal gets dementia, and he reverts back to his first ever memories, and he says like, you know, I was programmed at this point in time by this person, and he taught me a song. And then he sings a song named Daisy. How about you talk about that, Malachi? Because I know you've been...
I love this song. And it's actually called Daisy Bell.
Daisy Bell, yeah.
And boy, oh boy, I just cannot stop listening to this song just because it is the creepiest thing ever. And when you look at the lyrics...
Wait 1 second. Malachi seems to think that the lyrics of the song that was written in 1892, is that correct?
Let me see.
Yes.
I think that-
1892,
yeah,
yes.
He seems to think that they're really creepy.
They are
I think that's
creepy.
only because Hal was the one singing them in
No,
super
look, if you
monotone
just
voice.
read the lyrics themselves, it's creepy.
But basically what happens is, like, you presume that Hal was taught this song.
It looked like a nice love song to me. It's like
Yeah, it is like a nice love
it's
song,
cute.
and that's why like the creator was like, oh, I'm gonna teach this nice love song to this artificial intelligence that I just
that
created
makes- yeah.
as just a template for it to learn, and you know, to learn about human emotions, and then it repeats this love song whenever it's reverted back to its early stages. You know, it's like that's the first thing that it would do when it would introduce itself to someone. It's like, hello, my name is Tal 9000, and I'm part of the 9000 series, and my creator taught me a song. And then he just and then he's like, would you like me to sing it for you? And Dave, in the middle of turning Hal off, says, yeah, Hal, I'd like to hear it. And it's this weird kind of emotional moment. It's like, you know, he relates with Hal a little bit, but he still shuts him down, and eventually Hal just stops talking. And then a video is played behind David, which I presume is like broadcast through the PA system of the ship. But basically, it says, okay, so you've made it to Jupiter, and now it's time to reveal your real. At this point, it's just kind of like a stereotypical, like, oh, go to Jupiter, collect evidence, do that kind of, just like, what scientists do. But then this guy who was, that was Dr. Floyd, right?
Yes.
At the beginning of the film.
Yeah.
He said, hey, we found this monolith, like this black, like 4 million year old big rectangle, and it transmitted a signal towards Jupiter, and that's why you guys are going there.
Yeah.
And
Enjoy.
everybody who was in suspended animation should know, and they should have told you by now, but they're all dead. So
Yeah.
I mean,
this is how
yeah.
Frank is finding out.
Yeah.
Not Frank. Frank's dead. This is how Dave is finding out, and it's like this weird kind of emotional moment. Then it cuts to what I believe is 15 minutes of an acid trip.
Yeah.
Or it's calmly.
Yeah,
that's just
and
the-
it was 15 minutes long.
That's just the Frank. That's just the Frank way to put it. It's basically this. It's referred to as the Stargate sequence.
no,
but
it's an acid trip.
It is one of the.
Trust me, I know it's an acid trip. Okay.
What do you mean you don't say that?
I'm kidding.
Malachi, you need to calm down.
First,
I know.
it's with the. Oh yeah, I guess the. That's the most offensive thing you've said on this podcast by so far, and that's pretty impressive because in the last episode you just you said some questionable things.
Hey.
But,
Speedrun, tell us what happened.
But basically, what happens is this is one of the weirdest scenes in film history. It's referred to as the Stargate sequence because Stargate Enterprise, all that happened later on. But basically, what happens is Frank. Not Frank. Why do I keep calling him Frank? Dave makes
Dave.
contact
Okay.
with the monolith that's in Jupiter's orbit, and then he's transported to a mansion, him and his whole pod. And the only way that I can really describe the scene is that Dave, he slowly sees himself age, and then he eventually watches himself die, and he reaches out and he touches a monolith that is at his desk, and it shows him eating meals and sleeping in this weird mansion, Victorian era type place. And then he reaches out and he touches the monolith, and then he becomes a giant space baby.
In his mother's womb, looking at the Earth, and it's
just in a womb, just in the fetal position. He's a giant space baby, and he's looking down.
Well, can't we assume that would then be his mother's womb?
It's whatever it is, but
right.
he's looking down at Earth.
Well-
and that is the end of the film, and that is when the booming score comes in.
Yeah.
And so, what are your impressions of that?
I want my answers.
That was. Now, I mean, I watched it and I was like, what?
So
But now that I have it explained a little more, I think I understand it a
So
little
what
better.
I think is the monolith was this kind of superior, just kind of more sophisticated entity that tried to advance the evolution of human beings, and so that is basically what that was. I guess giant space babies.
yeah.
are
Giant
what-
space babies
I
are the
guess
future.
Oh, one day we're all gonna be giant space baby.
And you get a giant space baby, and you get a giant space baby. Everybody gets a giant space baby. Look
Well-
under your chairs, boys.
So I guess that's okay. And by the way, in the book, the giant space baby at the end sends all those nukes. The suspended nukes that were in orbit. He just sends them into Earth, and he's like, "Hey, everyone's dead," and that's the end.
All right,
on
I
that
guess that's
note,
it.
Have a wonderful day, ladies
Thanks
and
for having
gentlemen.
us.
And that is the end. Yeah.
Thank you for that experience.
Whatever you just made us do, thanks. Thanks for it.
So yeah. Bye.
See ya.